This is a story right here that when it happened, it garnered some attention, but it got quickly swept under the rug, came back to light when the people who did this attack on this man by the name of Taj Peterson, it gained a little bit more steam, but not that much steam. And then it went back under again, and then did not come back to the surface until a couple months ago when Taj Peterson got a $4.5 million settlement. And the crazy part about it is, all of this was pretty much blown and swept under the rug with the except of the actual attack on this man's life itself. So this is a story where, sometimes I tell you, I don't like to reach back so far with stories, but this one I'm going to talk about because there's a couple of things in here that really stuck out to me in a multitude of ways. And those of you who live in New York probably remember this story. And the most recent article I'm going to read from is coming from Baller Alert because it was posted today, December 2nd, 2022. But, excuse me, like I said, this man's name is Taj Peterson. And back in 2013, he was violently, brutally, and viciously attacked by multiple Hasidic Jewish men in a claim that someone was vandalizing cars in that neighborhood. And Taj Peterson was the first black man they saw, and he was attacked so viciously, in fact, that he ended up going blind in one eye. If you can look right here with this eye and how this one's normal and this one really isn't, this is the eye that he went blind in because they beat him that badly. And the reason I remember this story vaguely is because of a picture. I'm not going to put it up, but of when he was so badly beaten that his eye was closed shut and it was purple. Like, they beat him that badly. But if you didn't also know, Taj Peterson is also in the academy. So this is a story that has a multitude of things that could be behind it. One, clearly he's black. That's number one. So there's the racial element right there too. He's a member of the academy, so that could be a hate crime under that, and the fact that he could get like a double hate crime, but none of that happened. Now keep in mind, this happened back in 2013, and this year, as in back in September, he just got his settlement. Almost 10 years later. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article, and you're going to find out some additional information if you were unaware of this story. A Brooklyn man who was savagely beaten by members of a Hasidic safety patrol in 2013 has been awarded $4.5 million in the case. The victim, Taj Peterson, who was black and gay, was just 22 years old when he was walking home from a friend's birthday celebration around 4:30 a.m. near Flushing Avenue on December 1st, 2013. Now I see why this story is coming back to light. Unprovoked, about 10 Hasidic safety patrol members began beating him, calling him the F word during their assault. Apparently, the members received a call earlier about a black person vandalizing vehicles in Williamsburg. Peterson believes the group targeted the first black person they saw. Now, for all intents and purposes, we have heard this kind of accusation so many times in the past. It probably wasn't even a black person out there. Two, it may not have been anybody out there at all. Did they even check to see if any vehicles were vandalized? Probably not. But then they heard that the keywords of a black person and vandalized, that was all they needed. Think of all the situations a black person has been in where they have been viciously attacked by some PC individuals off of mere accusations, most likely done by another PC individual. Despite 4 witnesses, the NYPD's 90th precinct labeled the attack a misdemeanor, with only one aggressor before closing the case. However, Peterson and his mother, Zara, refused to accept this outcome, and shortly after, the case was reopened and classified as a hate crime. At least one 90th precinct was reprimanded for closing the case without proper investigation. Eventually, 5 men were arrested on assault charges, even though charges against 2 were dropped. The other 2 pled guilty to misdemeanor unlawful imprisonment in 2016, and the 5th man, Mayor Herskovic, was convicted of gang assault in 2017. He successfully appealed his conviction in 2018. Since then, the fight for justice has been a slow process that often favored the attackers. This has been a tough fight since day one. You're dealing with people who have a tight-knit connection to the police and political figures, Zara shared in a statement. The Hasidic Safety Patrol is a specialized unit through the Williamsburg Safety Patrol meant to protect the Jewish community in New York City. The city has provided the department with funding since 2014, including $93,250 in fiscal 2023 from the city's council's discretionary fund. On September 19th, Judge Miriam Sunshine awarded Peterson the settlement, with $3 million going towards his past pain and suffering, while the other $1.5 million is to assist with his overall life moving forward. While the Hasidic rallied together to raise money for the legal defense, Peterson does not believe they will make efforts to pay him following the verdict. To date, Peterson has not reportedly been paid. Now, peep that. This man was supposed to receive money. He was supposed to receive money, and to this day, they still not have paid him. But they paid enough money out to the groups that are responsible for his attack and why he's blind in one eye. Now, the article I just read mentioned about how one of them got charged with something, he got convicted, and then it got overturned. This is the man right here. This is that Meyer Herskovich that I was reading about, or his name was mentioned. Well, one of them. It says Hasidic man convicted of beating a black student gets verdict overturned. When 5 Orthodox Jewish men were accused of beating and partially blinding a young black fashion student 4 years ago in Brooklyn, by the way, this is dated October 2018, it briefly reignited one of New York's most incendiary racial divides, the one between the borough's Hasidic and the African American communities. The case became even more contentious when the prosecutors suddenly dropped their charges against 2 of the defendants and let the other 2 plead guilty to lesser crimes, avoiding time in prison. Only one man, Meyer Herskovich, was ultimately convicted at trial and sentenced to prison. But in a sweeping decision issued Wednesday, a state appeals court overturned Mr. Herkovich's guilty verdict and threw out his indictment, saying there was simply not enough evidence to convict him or to charge him in the first place. In their decision, the appellate judges noted that the victim of the beating, Taj Peterson, had failed to identify his assailants and that the DNA evidence that prosecutors used to convict Mr. Herskovich was, quote unquote, less than convincing. Now, there's some more stuff to it, but I think y'all pretty much get the idea. They had in my opinion, they had every intention of letting this man walk, along with the other ones. So you got to ask yourself, who got the short end of the stick here? I think it's pretty obvious. But this goes back to a point that I and several others tell those who are in the academy who are black. You can lead with your sexuality first all you want to, but these other groups, they ain't doing it. Now, this was a black man that got viciously attacked. He ended up losing his eye. He lost his vision in one eye behind this attack, over an accusation of him vandalizing property. He has yet to be paid the money he was owed for his pain and suffering. And it happened at the hands of them folks. And you know what's so crazy? These are the same individuals that will tell us or tell the world that black people need to talk about the anti-Semitism that goes on in our communities. We're the ones that need to be spoken to. We're the problem. Yet this story right here got swept so far under the rug, it's practically collecting dust, or has collected dust. I need to know from those in the chat, did you even know about this story? Because like I said, I heard about it, but in 2013, I wasn't making commentaries, at that time. So it wasn't a story I would have talked about. And if you're in New York, I'm almost certain y'all definitely heard about it. But speaking of other communities that need to talk about this besides, the usual, the academy, where's your antennas at? Because he's a part of that community as well. And I can't remember them ever bringing this story up. And that's another group right there that loves to tell black people we're the most homophobic. Yet look at what happened to this man. It wasn't other black people that attacked him and caused him to lose vision in one eye. We're not the ones that's involved with getting his money for his pain and suffering. This man been pain and suffering for almost 10 years and still hasn't gotten a dime of it yet of what he's owed. But the group that did attack him, they're still getting funded. Amazing how that whole paradigm works, right? See, I bring stories like this to the forefront because in a way, yes, it's bringing awareness to stories that don't get put out there like that, but it's also to call out sometimes, in some cases, hypocrisies. I called out 2 of them. It's messed up what happened to this man. Very messed up. And it's still messed up that he really never got justice. He never got it. The people that was involved in his attack all pretty much walked. They going on living their lives. And this guy's still fighting for justice almost 10 years later. And the so-called communities that love to say we're this and that phobic or we're this and that anti-Semitic. Well, let's just put it this way. The community that's getting attacked by them aren't the ones that did this to him. So, yeah, this is it's a very interesting situation, but I'm just curious though, like, will any of those groups speak up and say something, or are they just going to allow this to just go by? Because when I read that article, I didn't see any kind of academy organization saying that they was going to give this man any type of an assistance in either articles that I read.